מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בנודשי ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינחלני. נפשי ישובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא ירא כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צוררי. דשנת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה, אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, giving me repose in green pastures, leading me beside the still waters, restoring my soul, guiding me in straight paths, for that is God's essence. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my foes. You've anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. On behalf of John's family, I want to thank you all for being here today, and do appreciate you complying with our mask policy. Those speaking from the Bima are welcome to take off your masks when you come up here. My name is Rabbi Solomon Grunwald, and it's my honor to be with you all here to guide you in this service. We gather today with the solemn duty and to mourn Jon Brilliant, who left this world tragically and far too soon. In the Bible's account of creation, the Torah teaches that Adonai, God, formed the first human, Adam, from the dust of the earth. God blew into his nostrils the breath of life, Nishmat Chaim, and the human became a living being. Since that day, we humans, all of us, live with a paradox. We are, in one powerful sense, dust of the earth. Our bodies are made up of the same stuff as the universe, finite and subject to the forces of nature. They and the life that they contain are a gift to us, but it is a gift that does not last forever. It is destined to return to the earth. At the same time, what it means to be created in the image of God, to have God's breath of life within us, is that each human soul has something unique to contribute to the world. Each of us is a reflection of God's will. What it means to be created with the spark of the divine is that each of us has something transcendent in us, something that is greater than flesh and blood. We all live with this paradox. We are part earth and part divine. Part of us dies and part of us lives on. Today we gather to lovingly return John's body to the earth. It is a mitzvah, a sacred obligation, a deep kindness and compassion. And today we also gather to lovingly accompany John's soul on its final journey and to offer comfort to his family. Jon Brilliant was born on March 4th, 1969 in Livingston, New Jersey. Rinnie and Marvin worked for Bloomingdale's and moved several times in those early years seeking professional advancement. From an early age, Rinnie and Marvin recognized that John was very special. Their son had a different way of learning from other kids. Rinnie worked very hard to find John the resources he needed to succeed in school. He had learning disabilities, but he also had grit. He was resilient and tenacious. He was an easygoing child, eager to please and willing to work hard to overcome his challenges. John's siblings, Mark and Ellen, recall with affection their brother John as fun, energetic, and joyful, always smiling. He didn't indulge in self-pity or see himself as different from other children. And indeed, that's the way John saw himself. John was well-liked by friends, and his positivity and enthusiasm made him popular among his peers. He attended Denver Academy, where he received the support he needed. And after high school, John was interested in becoming a pilot. He attended Rangeley Community College in the aviation program. He did well in his initial flight instruction, but he had a hard time with written exams, and the school was not well equipped to accommodate his learning needs. So Jon went on to pursue another passion of his, music. He worked in radio production for several years. He loved the work and the exposure it gave him to the world of rock music. Nonetheless, radio didn't pay very well, so Jon decided to go back to school. This time he pursued another one of his great passions, cooking. Jon was successful in culinary school. He would go on to work in several restaurants before finding his way to the catering business. He worked for several years with Epicurean Catering, where he had a kind boss who supported and encouraged him. Jon recently had started working as a manager for a corporate cafeteria. He had finally achieved the success and level of responsibility he had sought when his life was cut short. Working in the food industry gave Jon a unique perspective on life. His exposure to the physically demanding and diverse world of commercial kitchens informed his politics, his views on issues like immigration, wages, and working conditions. He loved to engage in discussions with Mark on these and many topics. Jon was, of course, an excellent cook, and nothing gave him more satisfaction than to cook for his family and friends. Among his niece and nephews, Ezra, Shoshana, Bashan, and Keston, Uncle Jon was famous for his schnitzel with orange creamsicle sauce, which intrigues me. I think I need to try that. His homemade corned beef, and huge holiday feasts of stuffed turkey with all the fixings. Jon was the fun uncle who found every opportunity to spoil the children. He always came bearing gifts, and he was always up for some fun. Jon loved to play frisbee golf, and he had recently resumed skiing in a serious way. He always loved music and traveled to New Orleans for Jazz Fest. He was proud of the concert posters and art he had collected, some of which were signed by the artists. Yet nothing was more important to Jon than his family, to which he was fiercely loyal. He was close with his mom, Rennie, who devoted much of her life to supporting Jon's success. Rennie was Jon's most ardent advocate and cheerleader. Jon was very close with his late father, Marvin. When Marvin died in 2014, Jon grieved mightily. Jon and his father had spent many good times together. They enjoyed going out to dinner and to the movies. Mark and Ellen, from whom we'll hear in just a moment, loved their brother and encouraged him on his path. He was close with his extended family in Israel and enjoyed visiting them, and we'll also hear from some of them. And Jon had a special friendship with his sibling spouses, Lisa and Scott. Jon carried the values he learned from his family. He was resilient and cheerful. He had a strong sense of right and wrong and stood up for what he believed to be just. He saw the world through the lens of someone who had worked in the trenches of the food industry alongside people who were less privileged. Jon was a dedicated employee with a strong work ethic. In the past couple of years, he enjoyed more success in his career. Jon's confidence was growing. He had started venturing out socially and even signed up for a dating app. Jon had many good things to look forward to in his life, and he was beginning to hit his stride when tragedy struck. Last Friday night, Jon failed to show up in California as his family was gathering to celebrate Ezra's bar mitzvah. It wasn't like Jon. After making some calls, his family learned that he never boarded the flight. The next morning, as Ezra's bar mitzvah was getting underway, a friend of Ellen's was able to enter Jon's apartment, where he was found passed away in his bed, by all indications peacefully and suddenly. Life can be cruel, and Jon left this world far too soon. Jon will be dearly missed by his many family and friends. He will be mourned by his mother, Rennie, by Mark and Lisa, Ellen and Scott, and Jon's niece and nephews, Shoshana, Ezra, Bashan, and Keston. He will be missed by his friends and many co-workers. May Jon Brilliant's memory continue to bless all of you, your families, and all who knew him. May his legacy of love, tenacity, and joy inspire you. May Jon's soul forever be bound up with yours in the bonds of eternal life. May he now rest in peace. Let us say amen. We'll now hear from John's family, beginning with Mark, Lisa, Ezra, and Shoshana.
First off, Rabbi, thank you so much for capturing John and saying words that I might not be able to finish saying, though I'll try. Thank you all for being here to comfort us, to comfort each other, and to honor John by your presence, to hold John, and to elevate his soul as it embarks upon its next journey. Talmud speaks of deaths like my brother's, like our father before him, as death by divine kiss. It says that such deaths are the easiest of the supposedly 903 kinds of deaths that God created in this world. I hope it was for him. It certainly isn't for us. John died of a heart attack, alone, at home, asleep. He was too young. What's worse, he was way too young, given where he was in his life at that moment. He had recently scored a job with more responsibility and greater pay than he had ever known. His sense of self-worth soared as he acquired a little more net worth. He treated himself to perhaps the most extravagant gift he had ever purchased, an epic ski pass. Lord knows he deserved such a modest indulgence. His work ethic was one of the things I loved and admired most about him, if I had a fraction of that. That plus the thing that matters. He treated himself most, his pit bull-like love and devotion to his family. He always showed up for us. He always showed up for work too, even if that meant well before sunrise, as it often did, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. John worked hard at hard jobs that didn't pay particularly well, yet he always took great pride in his work, and his family and friends took great pleasure in it. John expressed his love best through his cooking, his delicious dishes. He loved soliciting our menu requests in anticipation of our visits. He loved crowing about what he had already prepared, and he loved serving it to us, always impeccably prepared and presented. In anticipation of the upcoming ski season, John was working out again. He was losing weight. He bought a used mono ski. When I asked him, "What is that? And why would you want it?" he replied, and I'm not going to try to imitate him, but those of you know him, know his sort of bravado kind of, "I want to be the coolest uncle on the mountain when I hit the slopes this season with my nephews and niece this winter." And that's the bitterest pill to swallow. Just as life was delivering John the best meal he had ever tasted, his plate got snatched away. Why couldn't he savor that flavor longer? Why couldn't he have just made it a few more days to join us in California to celebrate Ezra's bar mitzvah, which he was looking forward to, and we were looking forward to? There are no good answers to those questions. Life can be filled with incredible joy and awful sorrow. Usually they don't hit us at the same time. This weekend, they did. John's death, the day before Ezra's bar mitzvah, is enough to make one's head explode from two thoughts that cannot be further apart for a single brain to hold. Before Ezra's bar mitzvah, I had a personal moment with the rabbi before we even knew the final news, but we knew the final news. I knew the final news. John always showed up, and John wasn't there. I didn't need the phone call to know. I knew. We all knew. And I sat there talking to the rabbi saying, you don't know this, but I'm going to tell you, if the family looks a bit more emotional than a family looks at a bar mitzvah, this is what's going on. And what's going on in my head is I'm simultaneously figuring out what I'm going to say to my son. In that brief moment, I have to talk to him at his bar mitzvah. At the same time, I'm figuring out what I'm going to say at this moment. But there were two other thoughts that have helped keep my head from exploding, and I'll just end on those two. The first one is that even as our lives have forever lost some of their good taste with John gone, I like to think, and we like to think, and we've talked about it, that John went to sleep on Thursday night with a very good taste in his mouth. The best taste he had ever had, given the direction his life was headed, and given the destination he was heading in the morning. The second thought I like to hold on to keep my head from exploding from those other two thoughts that couldn't be further apart, is that I like to think that John didn't wake up on Friday morning because our pops just wanted him, needed him for some company to watch Ezra's bar mitzvah from a skybox seat with someone else serving the delicious dishes to them.
I just wanted to, John's sister-in-law, Lisa, I just wanted to, first of all, thank everybody so much for being here. It means so much to the family. It means so much to John. And I just wanted to share a very few words about some of the things that I really recognized and most appreciated in John. It's just, John always had, in my view, an incredible appreciation for anything he had in his life, for the little things. Anytime we were with him, whether it was going out to dinner, whether we went whale watching in Monterey, whatever it was, he appreciated his experiences. He appreciated any opportunity that he had so much. And it's a gift that I think we can all take from him and learn from him. Sharing. I would say John really always wanted to share. He wanted to share the food that he prepared for you. He wanted to share. He and I connected. Later in life, I became really interested in basketball. He would call me. He wanted to share if the Warriors were playing. He wanted me to know what was happening in different games. He always was calling. He wanted to share what was on his mind. He wanted to share his experiences. He wanted to share what he thought people needed to know and what he thought people couldn't miss out on because it was too good. He wanted them to have part of it. And that relates to the next one, which is just how giving and generous I always saw John to be. As little materially as he may have had, he always found a way to share as I think Mark said, always giving gifts to the kids, always cooking food for others, just giving, always giving. Wanted to share, it's the sharing and the giving really go together. I saw John as an entrepreneur, and I just wanted to mention that because I think it's interesting. He was so creative. I can't tell you how many business ideas he had that he shared with me. I'm sure he shared with others. Always had different ideas for businesses and opportunities he wanted to start. Always connecting. He, like I said, these all relate, but pick up the phone and just connect with a thought that was on his mind. Just tell you where he was and what he was thinking, bring you in. And curious. He was watching the news all the time. He was thinking about issues all the time. We didn't always share the same political views. He wanted to talk to me about it and really talk it through, call me and talk about immigration and other topics. And Mark mentioned the hard work, which is just something, I mean, an unbelievable work ethic that John had. I mean, just not to be matched. A lot more that I could say, but I know others have many words, and just miss you so much, John. We will always miss you and really love your beautiful soul.
Hi everyone. Good morning, Uncle John. How are you doing up there? Today I'm going to say a few things that I love and miss about you. I'm also going to share a few memories. Do you remember all the times you picked us up from the airport? No matter if it was 11:30 p.m. or 2 in the morning, we could always depend on you. You were always there for us. You were very funny. My dad told me all about how you were going to be the coolest uncle on the mountain with the monoski. He also said that Papa wanted company for the bar mitzvah. You are such a great uncle, and I'm going to miss you. And I'm going to miss all of your humor and jokes. Thank you for everything.
I'm Ezra, Uncle John's nephew. One thing that John always had was chesed, which means love and kindness. He was always there for us. He'd pick us up at the airport. I was always so excited for him to come to California and hang out with us.
We'll now hear from Ellen and her family, with Scott and Bashan and Keston.
All right. So I'm Ellen. I actually am the little sister, so Mark and I would be the Oreo cookies on the outside, and as my father always said, John was the sweet cream center. So my brother provided, in his words, brief remarks this morning, and I had said I might be going on and on and on, so thank you everybody for giving us these minutes to say what's in our heart, and to get to meet so many of you that were so important to him. Some old faces that I got to see this morning. Gina, it's good to see you, and Trace, we'll look forward to seeing you and meeting the rest of you, so thank you all. As we have been reeling from the shock and devastation of John's untimely passing, we have found that there is great comfort in knowing that he meant so much to so many. We want to thank all of you for helping shoulder some of this pain and for helping fill this gaping hole with happy memories and funny stories of our beloved John. There is so much to share about John, and so much that I know you all can share with us from your own interactions and getting to know him. You know, when we thought about the stories to share of like when we were in Israel and we were lost in Jerusalem and it was only John who could figure out in his own sort of John way how to get us back to where we were going. Or when he was at our wedding and in the midst of the wedding, he's jumping up and down and trying to fix the flowers on the chuppah. And I was like, what is he doing? Or all kinds of other things. But I think most important, as you heard and will continue to hear, most important for us to share with you was his deep love for his nephews and his niece. No one was more fun, more silly, more of a hero to them. He inspired my boys to play guitar, to play drums, and to always just play crazy together. My brother constantly spoke about his desire to leave Bashan and Keston and Ezra and Shosh an inheritance. And he was always frustrated that it wouldn't be $1 million. I hope that he understood that the riches that he is leaving them are far more valuable than any chest of gold that he could have filled. So Pezhead, Bash, Kestipu, and Sochi, beyond his prized Scramble Campbell paintings and his rock and roll memorabilia, these are just some of the treasures from your Uncle Johnny that you can carry in your hearts forever. First, no matter what the circumstances, your Uncle John showed you how to keep putting one foot in front of the other. If you fall down, get up and keep going. John taught us that no matter the hand you were dealt, you play it with all that you have and with all of your might. He was so much stronger in that regard than I think I ever fully grasped. He was a man of great perseverance who never gave up the pursuit of his dreams, even those pie-in-the-sky ones. Second, he taught us all how to love unconditionally and show up. John was lucky enough to remain pure of heart for all of his days. He was loyal to those to whom he loved and was lucky enough to be loved precisely for who he was by all of you here today and those joining virtually. John gave so freely of himself, whether it was cooking or his silly voicemails, just because he loved and he felt loved, not because he ever expected anything in return. He found great joy in always being there to celebrate the accomplishments of you four and all of your milestones. His family, and you guys in particular, meant the world to him. Because of him, remember to give people the benefit of the doubt. We don't know what their struggles are. We don't know what is behind the glass wall that they are looking through. But see them for who they are and not what you think they are. Treat them with kindness, encourage them with a smile, and show them the warmth that your Uncle Johnny showed so many friends and yet to be friends. I have found great comfort over these past few days, hearing over and over from so many of you that my brother always had a warm smile to share and a warm welcome to greet many of you. As my mom reminded us through all of our tears in these last few days, John went out on top. He was the proudest and happiest he had been in all of his adult life. He had a job that fulfilled him. He was going on crazy dates. And he was looking forward to skiing with his buddies and to you guys and so much more. He savored every minute he had with you and everyone that is with us today. Mom, I'm sorry. This is not the natural order of things. Your devotion to John was evident to all who knew him and all who know you. Jon was the man he was, strong, persistent, and loving because of you and Daddy. You have so much to feel proud about. In the end, Jon did it. And he created good to sustain all of us through the many years we will have without him. While comfort will be difficult to come by anytime soon, I hope, Mom, that you find some peace, knowing how much Jon felt valued by you and how deeply he felt your steadfast support and unwavering love always. Finally, I want to say to Lisa and Scott, thank you both for being the brother and sister that Jon truly deserved, and for helping Mark and me be the best siblings we could be to him. David, Julia, Andrew, and Tammy, thank you guys for being there to help with the unimaginable. Thank you to Rabbi Grunwald and to Jim and the Feldman team and all of you here with us today for helping us begin this very painful transition of saying goodbye to Jon, at least for now. I will ache every single day wishing that we had more time with my brother, but I will also be eternally grateful that when Jon fell asleep last Thursday night, all he knew was happiness, the love of so many of you, and that he was coming to be with the 4 of you and the rest of his family. For him and all of us, may Jon's memory always, always be for a blessing.
Hi, I'm Scott. I'm Jon's brother-in-law. Ellen and Mark, Rini, Ezra, Bashan, Keston, and Shoshana. I want to express how sorry I am for the loss of your brother Jon and son and uncle. And thanks to all of you for being here to remember your friend. Jon gave us innumerable gifts during his life. I wanted to talk about a few. He was uniquely salty and sweet like his cooking. Chicken schnitzel with orange creamsicle sauce you've already heard about. Cajun Thanksgiving turkey with pineapple Hawaiian gravy, maple brisket, pumpkin risotto cakes, and more. His food, like Jon, brought spice and enjoyment to every table he served. Salty and sweet. Smiles. Jon came in the room often with a gruff, New York tough accent, punctuated by a knowing smile. And gave you that look, that kind of side look, and a smile that always brightened up the room. Grit. March 26th, 2021. After a year of collective COVID hibernation and 20 years away from the slopes, Jon decided to reignite his love for skiing. Jon Bashan and I skied that day. It was tough on his legs. After 4 runs, he was shot, and down in the lodge, Bashan and I finished out the day. A few days later, he was back at it with Keston. His grit helped him push through, and somehow that spring he skied more than 15 days. I don't even know if there's 15 days left in the ski season from March 26th on, but he did it. He bought and sold skis, his entrepreneurship that Lisa referenced. He bought and sold skis on Facebook, Marketplace, and Craigslist to earn enough money to buy his dream monoboard. Grit. The most valuable gift was his time. Seeds of gold that Jon invested in his niece Shoshana and his nephews, Ezra, Bashan, and Keston. He worked physically demanding jobs, often 12 to 16 hour days. Despite that, he always had time to serve and play in his most venerable role, Uncle John. He never missed a chance to give a birthday gift, celebrate a holiday, lead a round of disc golf, or roll on the floor laughing, unless he was physically unable. And that was the case last weekend when we were expecting him in California. His ability to be present, invest his time in others, is a direct inheritance from his mother, Rini, and father, Marvin. L'adore vador, from generation to generation. Pass that on. Realize his gifts are ours as well. Let us lift each other up in the ways that we would lift up John if he were here today. Thank you, John, for reminding us of these valuable gifts. Our time, grit, smiles, and everything we are, salty and sweet. Rest in peace.
I was mortified to hear that my uncle had passed away. I did not believe it. My Uncle John was always someone who was kind, understanding, and someone I could always trust. I loved him so much. He got me into music, and because of him, I've done drums for over 2 years. I remember the one time I skied with him. It was stupendous. I miss him so much and wish I could spend more time with him. He was always there for me, and I feel despair and emptiness now he's passed away. I feel devastated because right when he had found a hobby he enjoyed so much, he had to go. The way he died, though, was probably a good one. He was in his bed and then just died, which means it was painless. And when his body was discovered, there was not a wrinkle in his bed, which meant he had gone peacefully. He also died right before my cousin's bar mitzvah, which means he died while feeling happy. And my grandpa, may he rest in peace, had company for the bar mitzvah.
Johnny was probably one of my favorite uncles that I've ever had. He's always so active. He loved to do things like ski, frisbee golf, play with our dogs, and so much other stuff. He was also interested in the things I do. I play guitar, skateboard, and a lot more. I remember the first time that I tried to play guitar. It was at Johnny's house, and he said, Bashan, try this. I did, and I loved it. And I took lessons for a couple years, quit, but then Johnny encouraged and wanted me to do it again. So I did, and I picked it up, and I still do it. The main point was that the only reason I would have ever started music was because of Johnny. I just want to thank Johnny for that, even though he's not here. Just over a year ago, I started to skateboard. It was Rosh Hashanah, and I remember that the first thing he said to me was, can you do a 360? And I said, no. Johnny then said, why not? You can do almost everything else. And now that he's not with us anymore, I'm going to learn how to do a frontside 360 in memory of him. Last winter, he went skiing with me and my dad. This was the first time that he'd skied in 20-some years. It was so much fun. He loved it, and I also loved it. I just loved it so much. He got a balance board, and he was practicing for this year's ski season. He was gonna mono ski, which looked so much fun and so cool, just like him. He was the best uncle ever, and I miss him so much and always will. We found out that he had died right after we got home from California. I was so sad, like unbelievably sad. He was feeling good at the time he died, and at least he wasn't sad. With that said, there will always be someone missing from my life, and I will always love and miss Johnny. Thank you.
Good job, sweetheart.
Thank you all for your beautiful words. John was also very close with his extended family in Israel, and we're fortunate, thanks to technology, to have some words from his uncle and from his cousin. First, we'll hear from Tal Brody, who's joining us via Zoom. Might take a little moment here. Uncle and from his cousin. First, we'll hear from Tal Brody, who's joining us via Zoom. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi. It's not easy being 6,000 miles away, but I do have to
Might take a little moment here.
On the ceremony and also on the technology to give us what we couldn't participate ourselves.
First, we'll hear from Tal Brody, who's joining us via Zoom. Okay.
Thank you. First, it's not easy being 6,000 miles away, but I do have to
Might take a little moment here.
On the ceremony and also on the technology to give us what we couldn't participate
Keep going, Tal.
ourselves. Okay, so again,
First, we'll hear from
got
Tal
double screen
Brody,
over here,
who's joining us via
but you
Zoom.
can hear me, I believe now, and I do want to say that I think this is the one. That's the person being deceased, one of the most honorable funerals that I have seen in my life. And I think John can rest in peace, knowing that his family loved him. In all my years going back and forth to Denver, okay, so my sister and my mom, nieces, double screen, nephews, their children, I believe now. It's always been John that's always been available to take me around, being deceased from the airport to the airport, or even never to a matinee. John, middle of the day to go to the movies. When John wants to go to the movies, I would go to the movies. Loved them. And as was said, a sense of humor back and forth in Denver. Okay, so brave in himself to get over his difficulties in life has to be admired by all. As was said, children, thank everybody for the beautiful word that's always been available. Said to John, take me around. I see that my sister is
Jeff.
holding on. And
Jeff, if you can hear me, I think we're getting some weird repetition here.
Middle of the day to go life. When John wants to go to the movies, I hope at the first opportunity it was said he gets to Denver to see everybody. So again, I think thank you all because it's very important for us to participate. Thank all our family in Israel. It's on the YouTube. Listening, seeing that my sister
Jeff,
and John.
Jeff, if you can hear me, I think we're getting some weird repetition here.
Beautiful. Thank to you. Thank to the people that have come outside the family. They also came to honor and respect everybody. Respect you. You really, I think, is watch over us. Thank you all. It's very important for us to participate. Thank everyone.
Yeah, it could be. All right, we'll see if we can get Tal and Ron back in just a few moments. Right now we'll invite David Goldberg, John's very good friend, listed here as his second brother, to share some words with us.
Well, the Zoom session was a bit musical. I think John would have liked that. And I think we all can imagine John's face or what he would have said to what just happened. So, thanks everyone for coming so much. First of all, I'd like to thank Kevin Hayden for being there with me and John on Saturday. Jimmy Cohen, who's just an angel on earth for everyone. and Ed Shapiro for attending to John last night. Thank you all so much. Having to attend to your friends, people you grew up with at this time, must be incredibly difficult, but I know John appreciates that it was you guys watching over him, so thank you. Our sister Julia, who's out of the country in London at the moment, wrote this, go quick, because Rena, you said I had 2 minutes, so we're trying to go a little longer, or not too much longer. John, as you would always say, I'm your sister from another mister, and I'll forever miss and love you. You will always be a shining light in our family lives together. We envision you now with our beloved dads eating your delicious Thanksgiving turkey. For the background for folks, I'm the second brother because our moms, Sue Goldberg and Greenie, met when they were 20 or something like that on the East Coast, and we all moved out. We came to Colorado in 76, and you guys came in 77, 3 kids, and the rest is history. How do you eulogize a brother? I've thought a lot about what I would say this morning, and I wrote a little piece here about how angry I was, filled with rage, angry at Adonai, if I can say that in synagogue, I'm not sure, but after seeing everyone, so many people here, and so many of John's friends come, I just don't feel that way at this moment, and I think I'm just filled with love, and I don't think John would want that, and he would much rather we remember him in a very good way. So thank you, John, for alleviating that from me. I do still think it's a little bit of a travesty that has brought us here today, but if I'm going to try and make any sense out of this, I'll decide to believe that it's John who brought us all together. Besides Ray Merenstein, who's always been there for some reason, John is the first person I ever met or remember meeting in 1977. I was in my room playing with Legos or something like that, and I looked up, and out of nowhere, there was this really short red-headed kid standing in my doorway. And apparently you guys had just come over to the house to introduce us to everyone. And he said, I remember this like it was yesterday, he said, I'm John, we're supposed to play together. And I said, okay. And from that moment, we were brothers and friends. He called me Davy Boy, I called him Johnny Boy, and our families grew up together. Hebrew school, holidays, family occasions. John was always there. He was my age in our families. Mark and Julia are the same age. Ellen and Eric, sorry, you didn't get a match. But John and I were the same age. In our family, he was my buddy. And one side note, on playing with John, everyone has mentioned, he had a very hard work ethic. Maybe he wasn't the best person at school, but he had other amazing talents. And for those of us that knew him well, he was incredibly smart. Never underestimate folks. He was incredibly smart. I once played John in chess, once. He beat me so fast, and I could see what was happening in his brain that I never played him again. And he just was wicked smart all the time. John was funny, always smiling. I don't remember John, we lived our whole lives together. I don't remember him not being happy. We all had trials and tribulations, but he always had a smile. I don't know a single person who did not like Jon Brilliant, not a single person. But more than being smart or smiling, John always wanted to share his happiness with others. And once he discovered cooking and how he could share his love by feeding you, he was amazing at it. For anyone here who's ever eaten John's cooking, you know what I mean. And in our families, Renee was a caterer back in the day, and she used to cook every Thanksgiving dinner. And the first year John made Thanksgiving, we had to apologize to Renee that she would never do it again. And that is a true story. And Scott, your mashed potatoes are great. So our families have had, in addition to everything else, have had Thanksgiving together my entire life. I don't think we've ever not. And every year John would whip up something amazing: porcini, mushroom stuffing, soy glazed turkeys. You get the idea. But the most amazing part of it all is John would just bring it in like it was no big deal. And you'd tell him how truly fantastic it was, and he would just shrug and say, don't worry about it, it's fine, I've whipped it up in my house, no problem. And those of you that work with him now, I'm sure saw that. But if you watched him really watched him, he would then sit back and watch everyone else eating his food, being nurtured off the love he provided, and you could see how happy he was. I do hope you all get a chance to go to John's current Facebook page. It's under Grover Brody, so that's what I think is his radio name possibly, so Grover Brody. So you can read how deeply he touched so many people and how so many had so many wonderful things to say about him. Just a couple quotes from there. He was just that damn memorable. Such a joy, a kind soul, 1 in a billion, heart of true gold. And I think his friend Nick Fakuri summed it up best. He never asked for anything from anyone except for their friendship. I think we could all be so blessed to be remembered so fondly. Keanu Reeves was asked in an interview what he thought happens after we die. He took a deep breath, thought for a moment, and then simply said one sentence, "I know the ones who love us will miss us." I believe he's right. I miss John, and know I'll miss him every day, and the world will miss the light he brought to all of us. I have one request for everyone here to make sure that John lives on in all of us. Please remember John often, every single day, every day, and speak his name whenever you are able. May we all honor his life every day by doing what John would do. Never ask for anything from anyone except for their friendship.
Thank you, David, for your words, and we do apologize for the technical difficulty we had getting the audio from Israel. I do want to let you know that John's family will be receiving visitors today and tomorrow, today Wednesday and tomorrow on Thursday, from 4 to 6. And we'll have a Shiva Minyan, a prayer service at 5 p.m. both evenings. So tonight and tomorrow night, 4 to 6, with a service at 5 p.m. at Rennie's home at 5792 South Hanover Way. You'll have instructions provided by Feldman Mortuary about the Shiva Minyanim. I'm told that we do have now the connection from Israel, and we'll be hearing from Tal and Ron.
Can you hear me now, Jeff?
Yes, we hear you.
First of all, I do like to commend the rabbi. It was an unbelievable, beautiful service, and your technical staff to bring Zoom 6,000 miles away so that our family in Israel can be a part of the ceremony. It's been a shock for us. It's been very sad. We're so sorry that everybody had to pass everything like this. And knowing John, watching everybody here, hearing the love of everybody in speaking, it sounds like I'm repeating myself.
You're fine.
Should I continue on, Jeff? Okay. I'm more or less hearing double what I'm saying, but I'm hearing double, but anyway, I'll go on, and I hope you can hear me, but watching everybody and seeing the strength of my sister and my niece and my nephew and their children in these tough days, it's admirable. And listening to what was said about John, everything was so correct. During my trips back and forth to Denver from Israel, I always knew that if not Rini, John will be there at the airport. Doesn't matter whether it's 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, or 6, or in arriving late in the evening, or going back to the airport. And it's not every day that I go to a matinee, the morning show or the afternoon show, and John, but you can't refuse John. John is John exactly how you described him. You can't help loving him for what he was. You can't help admiring him for his difficulties that he never complained about, and enjoyed his life with music. And one thing that we all would definitely know, that John up there watching everybody, relating to him, and seeing the love that everybody has for him, he can really rest in peace.
I don't think we have a second speaker. He wasn't on the Zoom. Do we know that Ron is on there as well, or? Okay. Perhaps we'll have an opportunity to hear from Ron during the Shiva. At this time, we'll conclude the service here. We will be making our way to Emmanuel Cemetery at Fairmount, and in a moment, Jim Cohen from Feldman Mortuary will have some instructions for you. At this time, I do ask you to please rise for the memorial prayer as we remember John Michael Brilliant, known in our tradition as Yoshua ben Mordechai v'Rachel. El male rachamim shochen bamromim hametzeh menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר רקיע מזהירים את נשמת יהושע בן מרדכי ורחל שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו אנא בעל הרחמים הסירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר אמן. El Male Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of John Michael Brilliant, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May John's soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude our service here at the Hebrew Educational Alliance. As the rabbi mentioned, we will have interment at Emmanuel Cemetery within Fairmount. We do not have an escorted procession today, so if you'd like to join us at the cemetery, we'll ask you to make your way to the cemetery as quickly as you can. If you do end up following the hearse or in some family cars, you must still obey all traffic laws. You cannot go through any stop signs or stop lights. We're going to be doing the same. We will be going slow. There are directions to the cemetery if you like. We've left those on the table as well. If we can ask you to remain in your places as we escort the casket and the family out. And then also, if you happen to see the family using the restroom in the foyer for a second, grabbing an item, please allow them to do so without getting bombarded with all your well wishes. We are on a tight time schedule with the cemetery, so it will delay their process in getting to the cemetery. Thank you. And I invite the pallbearers to come forward.
Didn't see a mask up here.